Welcome to the Spirit of Western States, the official podcast of the world's oldest and most iconic 100-mile trail race, the Western States Endurance Run. I'm Carrie Mink, the Assistant Race Director of Western States, and I'm here with my co-host, John Trent, a Western States board member and longtime Western States fan and runner and aid station captain. John, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Carrie. I mean, the question is, how are you doing since you're, overseas? And like, we were just joking a little before we started here. What day is it over where you're at right now and all that good stuff?
I know I am in New Zealand, and we'll jump into that here in a little bit of why I'm way over here. But yeah, every morning I wake up, I'm like, what day is it? What time is it? And what day and time is it back in the States, in either California or in Florida? So there's been a lot of converting of times and days since I've been here to figure out who's awake, who's working or not working. So yeah, it is Tuesday here, around 8:30 in the morning, and that means it's Monday for you and anyone else listening from the States. And I'm not sure exactly when we'll publish this because the Wi-Fi here is allowing us to record this, luckily, but I don't know that it's strong enough to actually get this posted today. But we will try. It'll get posted this week for sure. But real quick before we dive into things, I believe, were you at the Mesa Marathon this past weekend, John? Or yeah, what were you doing there? Who was running?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'd run Mesa Marathon a couple of years ago, and it's a really nice event. So I went with my daughter Katie, my youngest daughter Katie, and our good friends Jimmy and Lauren Watson. So we spent the weekend down there. It's kind of funny because even though you're running a marathon, you're thinking about, just down the road a little bit is Black Canyon. So
Uh-huh.
we ran the marathon on Saturday morning, hung out there for a little bit, and then immediately went back to our Airbnb and watched the live broadcast for the end of Black Canyon, and geeked out on that. So even though we were in marathon mode for a few hours on Saturday morning, we immediately pivoted to the world of ultras, and we're just astounded at the competitive level on the women's and the men's side at Black Canyon, and just a great broadcast too. I mean, the quality was just awesome. The commentating was superb, and just watching that. So yeah, we ran marathon and then quickly went back to our normal sort of, we feel a lot more comfortable looking at the ultra world.
Very cool. Well, congrats on another marathon. Now that you are healthy again, you're just crushing it. It's very impressive to see what you've done over the last, what has this been, like 6-ish months since Javelina and CIM and now Mesa. So congrats on your marathon this weekend.
Well, thanks. Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was really fun. It was a beautiful day. And, as I was telling everybody in our group, from Reno, what's interesting about marathoning is you're just part of this odyssey, from the beginning to the end. There's people with you the entire time. They kind of flow in and out, come and go. And if you're an ultra person, we like to visit, and I don't know if true marathoners truly do, but you can always tell an ultra marathoner because suddenly it gets very chatty, during many of those miles. And that's what made it so much fun for us, I think, too.
Yeah, we like to visit and we like to eat snacks as we're doing that. So yeah, that sounds super fun. And as you mentioned, the live stream going on this weekend. I haven't been able to see any of the actual live stream. I'm over here, like you said, in New Zealand. We had a double golden ticket weekend this weekend with Tarawera 100K and the and Black Canyon 100K in Arizona. And that doesn't usually happen that they both fall on the same weekend. Craig Thornley, race director, and I divided and conquered, and he went to Black Canyon to present golden tickets. And I flew out to New Zealand my first time here and went to Tarawera. And so we can dive into that. And like I was saying, I haven't actually seen the live stream. I just checked the tracker all day. And so that would have been for me on Sunday, the Black Canyon was happening, which was kind of nice because I got to just enjoy Tarawera and pay attention to what was going on there since I was there. And then Sunday, it was Sunday for me that I then got to follow along Black Canyon. as just checking the tracker. So I do want to go back and actually watch the live stream though, so I can see it all unfold. And I heard that it was really great, like you said. So yeah, two of our 6 golden tickets and races. One of them, Black Canyon, being what we kind of call a super golden ticket race. So we awarded 6 total tickets at Black Canyon, 3 to men, 3 to women. Tarawera, it was 4 total, so 2 men, 2 women. So out of our 6, we have 3 that are super golden tickets and 3 that are standard golden tickets. So 4 versus 6. So we gave out 10 golden tickets this past weekend, which is really fun and crazy. And Craig and I were just texting all weekend about what was going on in the races.
Mhm.
And like you said, the competition this weekend was really deep and really fun to watch, and a couple notable things that we'll talk about that we saw at these races. But I will real quickly run through. By now, I'm sure anybody that's listening knows who got our golden tickets, but of course, I want to recognize them here. First being at Tarawera. So for our men, Dan Jones, who is, local New Zealander, won the race, won the Tarawera. He's already in Western States because he was a top 10 finisher last year. So he's already in. So then what happens when that happens is that the golden ticket rolls down. In our standard golden ticket races, it'll roll down to 5th place if need be. That was not needed here, but it did roll down to 2nd and 3rd place for the men, who both accepted the golden tickets. 2nd place being Jacob Banta out of
Right.
California, actually. Jacob has been involved in Western States before as like photographer and videographer and so forth, and it was really fun to see him win a golden ticket. He was very, very excited. So
Mhm.
that was really fun to present that to him. And then another New Zealander ended up in 3rd place, who also accepted the golden ticket, which was Max Yanzik. And he was
Mm.
also very happy and proud to win the golden ticket. So it'll be fun to see what he does at Western States. He's a really young, talented runner. I did a little bit of research on him afterwards because,
Mhm.
admittedly, I didn't know much about him. So anyhow, really excited to have those guys joining us this year. And on the ladies' side, first place in the 100K was Ruth Croft. We had already heard going into Tarawera that Ruth would likely not accept the golden ticket. She just has other plans this year for her racing, which is totally understandable and totally fine. But of course, I had planned on doing my best to convince her, and it did
Mhm.
not work. But it was really fun to talk to her at the finish line, and the woman doing the interviews at the finish line actually ended up asking her before I got a chance to ask her, but she said, "Oh, we heard, that, you got a golden ticket, and we're curious, if you're going to take it or whatever." And she said that she was not going to. She's running UTMB, and she has, other plans this
Mhm.
year. And so anyhow, but of course I still come up to her. I got the big ticket in my hand and
Right.
was like, I heard what you just said, that you likely aren't taking the ticket, but you do have 2 weeks to decide. You could take your
Mhm.
time and decide, and you don't have to tell me right now. And I thought for a second she was thinking about it, but then
Mhm.
she was like, no, I'm not going to run this year. So, but she said, I will be back. I'm definitely going to come back one day to Western States. It just won't be this year. So, she said, so I'm happy to, to roll down and let somebody else run. So, but it was really fun talking to her nonetheless. And then 2nd place, not too far behind Ruth. They had a really competitive race and pushed each other and their teammates. But Caitlin Fielder was 2nd place at Tarawera. She's already in Western States because she was a top 10 finisher in 2025. But so of course she didn't need the golden ticket. So we rolled down again. And our 3rd place runner in the women's side was Hanuka Akayama. She is from Japan, and she was extremely excited to
Mhm.
accept the golden ticket. So
Mhm.
that was really fun to offer her that and have her accept it and see how excited and proud she was to, to accept that. And then in 4th place, a runner from Australia, Holly Ranson. She finishes in 4th. She goes over and talks to her family for a little bit. Her crew chief, her husband, I'm not sure who he was, but celebrating her incredible finish. And I'm kind of standing off to the side, and I have the golden ticket and I turn it so she could see. And I didn't know if she knew that she was in golden ticket position because if she didn't know that, Ruth had turned it down and that Caitlin was
Mhm.
already in her mind, if she's fourth, then she's out of golden ticket range. But anyhow, she was very surprised, like the big surprise look on her face and happy. There may have even been some tears, but she was very happy to accept it. And if you go back and watch a little video clip of her accepting it, it's really cute. She said that she just accepted a new job, um, but that basically I think she said something to the effect of, I did just take a new job, but they can stuff it. I'm going to the United States to run. So that was fun.
Uh,
So overall, really fun presentation at the finish line for the golden tickets at Tarawera. And I know that Craig had as equally as rewarding time offering his golden tickets. So I'll go through that. Now I'll start with the ladies' side. As you said, John, like the competition was so deep, like maybe one of the most competitive or the most competitive field we've seen at Black Canyon. I would
yeah.
venture to say that, both the men and women's side.
Mhm.
And we had, um, Molly Seidel running the 100K.
Yeah.
And she, as everybody knows, is an Olympic marathoner, bronze medal. And apparently, which I didn't see it, but Craig had told me on a pre-race interview, she had already alluded to, or at least just outright said that if she was in golden ticket position, that she would accept the golden ticket. So of course we were excited at the thought of that. Our first place lady was Jennifer Lichter, and she accepted the golden ticket. She was not already in the race in Western States, so she happily accepted the golden ticket. And in second place, I think she was only 70 seconds, like a minute ish, like behind Jennifer. Like really close race for 62 miles is pretty impressive for them to run that close together. But with Ann Flower, Ann
Mhm.
Flower kind of started coming onto all of our radar in a big way last year when she set the course record at Leadville. She had already won some other things, I think the Silver Rush 50 or so forth. But when she came into Leadville and we're like, whoa, gosh, Ann Flower, just broke Ann Trayson's Leadville course record. And now here she is getting second place at the most competitive 100K and coming to Western States. So I personally am very excited. Ann Flower was at the top of my list for voting at the Ultra Runner of the Year for Ultra Running Magazine. And so I'm a big Ann Flower fan. So excited to see her coming to Western States this year. And then, and by the way, that was Jennifer set a new course record at Black Canyon this past weekend. And I think Ann Flower was under, oh, I mean, yeah, she was under the previous course record as well.
Mhm.
Only 70 seconds behind. And then third place was Tara Dower, who already has a goal. She just got a golden ticket at Javelina. So she's already in Western States, but so it would, and since this is our super golden ticket, we're giving out 3 per gender. So third, it rolls down to our fourth place, which was Molly Seidel. And if you saw the video, John Trent, of her coming across the finish line,
Yeah.
how happy she was. And I do wonder, and I'm sure that there'll be lots of interviews with her afterwards, like how happy she was. She was, doing the arm pump and jumping and so excited. That
Yeah.
was it excited because she got fourth place? Was it excited because she knew she was going to get the golden ticket because she knew that Tara already had it
Yeah.
and it was going to roll down to her? Was it just excited for her own personal performance at her first 100K, or all of the above? Anyhow, I would love to hear what was going through her mind at that point when you could just see how happy she was at the finish. And then she, gets the golden ticket from Craig and she kisses it and she's holding it. It's such a cool moment to see,
Yeah.
a road marathon runner come over to trail and do so well and seems to be so happy about it. You have any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, Carrie, I think, for Molly, without really knowing exactly what was going through her head, but I think all of the above of what you said. And I think anybody who's followed her story knows that, she's had some challenges, since, getting that bronze medal at Tokyo. And I would imagine a lot of that too is just like, how all of us runners are when we've had some challenges and we have a good day, and probably the golden ticket was kind of like the cherry on top of that. But just when you've had kind of a long road and you don't quite know where the road is leading, and there's a lot of doubt, and whether you doubt yourself and wondering if you can compete at this high level again or whatever. So I think there was some of that going on, and too, it's the magic of Western states too. I mean, it's no
Absolutely.
to see an Olympic bronze medalist get that excited about coming to run Western states speaks to what Western states is really all about. That there is a certain sort of aura to it that, for any type of runner to be able to come do it, it's a special thing. And you could really see that as Molly reacted to getting that ticket from Craig. It's interesting too, because those of us who are trail runners are like, oh yeah, this road runner, it was, Molly did not look that beat up, when she finished. And, I look at somebody like Tara Dower who tumbled a few times, but that's kind of like what Tara does, she wears some of the courses that she runs, on her person, when she finishes. And I thought that was an interesting sort of juxtaposition of Tara is without a doubt one of the great trail runners in the world, male or female or whatever. But here's Tara. She's got, the blood on her shoulder and dirt and everything. And Molly looked great. And it
It's
was just
funny
kind
that
of a
you
contrast.
absolutely, and afterwards, I don't know if you saw the post-race interview with Tara that was hysterical, but she said something to that effect because she showed her bloody shoulder and her knee, and she said, these other women are runner I don't know if she specifically said the ladies, but anyhow, like, that are not falling or not like, she goes, How are you doing this?" So it is kinda like her MO, and luckily, she didn't get hurt because she did think for a few minutes
Yeah.
there that she might actually be banged up enough that she would have to withdraw. Was it at Bumblebee? I can't remember. In the post-race interview, she mentioned that she thought, "Oh, the race might be over," because she actually had a little bit of a limp, but then it worked itself out. But so she took a hard fall, but she's so tough and she's such a
Yeah.
competitor. And talking about Tara specifically, it's really fun to look at her progression over was this her 4th year running Black Canyon? But they posted all her
Hmm.
times over the 4 years and just how much faster that she's gotten. I think this year she ran 30 minutes faster than she did last year when she won the race. Um, so it's really fun to see her. Tara's just a fun competitor to watch. Like everybody loves Tara, right? And but her
Yeah.
post race interview is quite funny because you could tell she really put it all out there and she was a little bit out of it, but she's just got such a great personality, on top of her athleticism. So if you haven't seen that interview, yeah, it's really entertaining. But yeah, so Tara already in the race, but she still wanted to. She mentioned that because some people say, you know what, you already have your golden ticket and you're out here like
Hmm.
fighting for this like top three or really pushing yourself, and she's just still trying to learn and race and be and get into that competitive mindset. And I think that there's a lot to that as well, that she didn't need to come out there and run her best to get a golden ticket. She's already in Western States, but she was using it for obviously a training run, but also for mental training and
Right.
knowing that the field was going to be really deep and that this was a great opportunity for her to work on that, the competitive side, the mental competitive side as well. And I think that it probably
Right.
delivered exactly what she was looking for, seeing how fast these ladies ran and um, how much it pushed Tara even to run her PR on the course.
Yeah.
So yeah, really fun race to watch. And then on the men's side, Hans Troyer
Yeah.
ends up bringing in the first place. Also breaking the previous course record. So a lot of fast times this past weekend, getting in under 8 hours. He's already in Western States because he was a top 10 last year. So the ticket rolled down to second place, which was Anthony Costales. And we've had Anthony at the race before, so
Mhm.
excited to see him come back, and he gladly accepted the ticket. And the second ticket went to third place, which was Trayson Knopp.
Mhm.
I don't know Trayson at all, so I'm gonna have to look him up. And are you familiar with Trayson at all, John?
I'm not Carrie because as we were watching, we got way too carried away talking about Hans and apparently how he goes to Walmart and buys the used bread and all this kind of. So yeah, we got more carried away with that part of it, about like how, I'm curious about this used bread thing at Walmart where you can get it for like 20 cents or something, and apparently that's what
Oh.
Hans does. And so if he does that, then that means we can get fast too by doing that as well.
Oh, okay. I just learned a new secret. I knew that there was some inside joking about Hans and like baguettes or bread and so forth.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
I wasn't sure where that came from. So that is very that's very
Yeah, so
interesting.
Trayson, don't know much about Trayson, but obviously
Yeah.
looked really, really good at the finish,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, to be in the top 3 at, races competitive as Black Canyon, obviously very, talented, able runner. And then we still have 1 ticket left going into 4th place, which would have gone to Canyon. Woodward was in 4th. He's already in. He got a golden
Mm,
ticket at Javelina when, David Roche, basically declined it and turned it over to Canyon. David was the second recipient. We had 2 golden tickets at Javelina, Will Murray being the first. David would have been the second. He gave it to Canyon. So, so Canyon didn't need the golden ticket, and so then it rolled down to
yeah,
5th, which was Jordan Bramblett. Also somebody I'm not super familiar with, but definitely wanna look up both of these guys, to see, to learn more about them going into Western States. And then just to mention, because a few people asked me at the finish line at Tarawera, what happens if in between now and race day, any of the golden ticket recipients have to withdraw, which does happen
mm,
sometimes.
mhm, yeah,
Craig reminded me that last year, MK Sullivan had won a golden ticket and then she got
mhm,
pregnant. And
yeah.
so it rolled down to the next place. And what race was that? Black Canyon that they won those? Anyhow, I don't want to get it wrong. So one of the golden ticket races, and it rolled down to Abbey Hall.
Totally, yeah,
So Abbey
yeah,
Hall got in through a roll down after the fact because of a
yeah,
withdrawal and ends up coming and winning Western States. So, with that said, how that
yeah,
works is between the time somebody wins a golden ticket and May 1st, if a golden ticket recipient has to withdraw for any reason, it will roll down all the way for our regular golden ticket races to the 5th place, and for our super golden tickets to 7th place. So for Tarawera, if one of our runners has to withdraw, it'll go to, for the men, either 4th all the way to 5th, and then for the women, there's just one. Since it already went to 4th, it would go to the 5th place woman if one of those ladies had to withdraw, which I'm just going to make a note is Katie Asmuth was 5th place at Tarawera, and, a big fan of Western States and vice versa. She had an awesome race out there this past Saturday. So anyhow, and then for Black Canyon, it'll roll down to 7th place if needed, if anybody has to withdraw. So that's the
mhm,
rule on that. It's up until May 1st. After May 1st, any withdrawals we will pull from the wait list after that instead of going to the golden tickets. And that's any of our entry types. Like if a sponsor or aid station, their runner has to withdraw anytime, they can replace that runner up until
mhm,
May 1st, and then we pull from the general wait list after that. So that's the rule on our golden tickets and how those roll down. Multiple people asked me this on Saturday at the finish line. So just wanted to go over that. And it's
you
also on
explained it
our
well.
website as
I
well.
I
Thank you.
understand I understand it, Carrie, you explained it really well.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And then, John, so speaking of just golden tickets and how things work, like I'd love to get into how golden tickets came about. Like, why were
Mhm.
they created? Were they always called that? and the origination of these elite spots. And if you could shine some light on the history of that for all of us, that would be fantastic.
Sure, Carrie. Happy to do it. Real quickly about Abbey Hall too. 'Cause you mentioned this about Tara, using Black Canyon, for a specific purpose, to really get out there and race and get some experience as far as that goes. And Abby, I think obviously did the same thing for Black Canyon. And for my money, Abbey Hall is like the most intelligent, um, strategic and tough, talented runner out there and amongst the elites. So I think Abby, I think, came away from that race with a lot of value. People would like, oh, fifth place or whatever it was that she finished, but she was right there, and I think she was running that race for a specific purpose as well. Looking forward to June and what that is going to mean for her, to defend her title. So I thought that was kind of interesting too. I think runners like Abby and Tara, they know how to get the most value out of those races for looking forward, into the future. To answer your question about a little bit of the history of the golden ticket. So this goes back more than 20 years. There was something called the Montreal Ultra Cup, which was a series of races in North America. Essentially, there were 5 or 6 of them leading up to Western States. And the idea was, at the time, there were a couple of things at play for Western States. Greg Soderland was the race director at the time for Western States. Greg was always kind of thinking ahead about the race. And one of the things that was happening, it wasn't like, it wasn't a big issue, but it was something that was becoming more and more apparent that really the depth at the front of the race wasn't where it needed to be. Um, and Greg was concerned about that. What would be a way to get more, at the pointy end of the race, to get a few more of those types of runners to make not to say that those races weren't super competitive, they were, but just to even add to the depth of it a little bit. So the Montreal Ultra Cup. Montreal was a shoe company that really was all over the ultra running space. They were everywhere, supported a number of different events throughout the country. And so from these 5 or 6 races, they included races like Way Too Cool, for example. American River 50 was part of, that original slate. There were races back east. I think at one point Pinoti was part of it. Run Rabbit Run was part of it. And there were 50K races, 50 mile Lake Sonoma. You know, was part of that, I believe, as well. And then eventually, the thought was 50K was too short of it. There were like 50K specialists that were then jumping to run into Western States. So the 50Ks kind of went away from the Montreal Ultra Cup, and more 50 mile, and then 100K and 100 mile became part of that. And then, Western States, we had Ultra was our presenting sponsor. That sponsorship, which was a great partnership, went away. And there was kind of a gap year there. I think it was 2016 where Montreal, the Montreal Ultra Cup, and the Montreal Ultra Cup was like, it would culminate with Western States. The series, it was a race series, and then Western States was the culmination. There'd be a prize, for if you'd won the Montreal Ultra Cup. So that kind of went away, as did our sponsorship with Ultra. So for a year, I think it was in 2016, Ian Sharman, coach Ian Sharman, and a great runner as well. Ian saw an opportunity where Ultra's sponsorship had gone away. Montreal Ultra Cup didn't really exist anymore. And so for a year, Ian was the sponsor of what was called the Sharman Golden Ticket, if you will, which was great. I think that, Ian has always been a person that's, looks at the sport in a way that, he wants to make sure that it keeps going. And I think, so there was, a little bit of cash prize involved. And Ian also, I think, agreed to help coach some runners through that program as well. So there was that sort of gap year where it was the Sharman Golden Ticket, if you will. And then Hoka came on as the presenting sponsor. And I believe it was in 2017, 2018, then it becomes the golden ticket series that you see today. And even that has evolved over the past several years, where at first it was very much North American based. And then, especially after the pandemic, once COVID started easing up a bit and you could travel throughout the world again from 2020, from 2021 on, there is this international flavor to it as well, which, you're sitting there right now as part of, New Zealand, and there are other races that are overseas that are also part of the Hoka Golden Ticket series as well. So from 2003 maybe until today, there's been some transformation over the years. And the whole idea, ultimately, the value for Western States has been, this has made our race highly, highly competitive. Not that it wasn't already. And it's to the point now where you look at a race like Black Canyon, where I think some people could argue that maybe Black Canyon, for a lot of those people racing to get that golden ticket, that might be the most competitive race, the biggest effort that they're giving, that they're putting forth in order to get into Western States via the golden ticket.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Thank you for that history. A lot of that I wasn't aware of. So it's always interesting to hear what we're doing today of how it started and where it came from. It's important for us to keep talking about those things, and who's behind it, and the innovation or the foresight to see that. As a race director, I'm sure Greg would get inquiries from elites, or like wanting to get in, and it's really hard as a race organizer to use subjective measures, or like try to
Mhm.
decide. So creating this Montreal Ultra Cup, and now the golden tickets, is obviously very objective, and it's a great way to bring out the best in our elite field, and have a way for them to race their way in six different races across the world. We have three out of our six are
Right.
international. We have one left for this season, that's international. That's Chianti, and then one domestic in California at the Canyons. So anyhow, thank you for that history of where our golden tickets came from, and learning of the progression of that, and how they've shaped these races that are golden ticket races too. And now, I would venture to say, if Black Canyon wasn't a golden ticket race, it probably wouldn't be the field wouldn't be as stacked as it was. But with that said, it's also a really great race. Aravaipa does an incredible job with the organization of it, the live stream, and that those types of things go into the decision making from the board and Craig, of deciding what races are going to be golden ticket races. And there's a video on our website that they get into that. I think maybe Dylan interviews Craig and Topher. Anyhow, I haven't watched it in a while, obviously, but it is on the website under the golden ticket tab, that you can see how those decisions were made, of what races were chosen as golden tickets. If anybody's
Yeah.
interested in hearing that, that's on our
Yeah.
website.
And Carrie, I was thinking about this morning. Um, it's interesting too how and rightfully so, this is how elites make their living, and their bodies are, their moneymaker in a lot of ways. And so they have to be very discerning about what they choose to run and don't run.
So
Um, and if I'm not mistaken, I want to say, as part of the Montreal Ultra Cup in 2005, our women's winner that year was a wonderful, wonderful runner. Annette Bednowski was her name. Really, really great, great lady. In fact, I had a chance, couple training runs. Was able to hang with her in the canyons and stuff. And
nice.
she lived back east. And I want to say that in 2005, when Annette ran it, and ran a really, really good time that year, I think she ran, the Montreal Ultra Cup was 5 or 6 events. I think Annette like ran all of them, or ran a lot of those races leading up to Western States. And then, of course, won Western States that year as well. And it was a kind of a different mindset back then, 21 years ago, compared to now, where I an athlete like Annette Bendowski didn't really even think twice about, having a springtime that was just completely full of really highly competitive races, and then going out and winning what was at that point, the most competitive 100-mile race in the world, and still is. You wonder today if something like that exists. Well, you don't see anybody run all the golden ticket races. They don't have to, obviously. It reminds me a little bit of like a few years ago. Remember Emily Hawgood? Um, she tried and tried during several golden ticket races where she came so close to getting the ticket, but couldn't quite. She'd come in third or fourth or whatever. It didn't quite roll down the way it needed to, and then finally, I forget which race it was. Emily finally got a golden ticket, but she had to run 3 or 4 of those golden ticket races one spring in order to do it. As we know, Emily's a very, very tough young woman, and highly talented, but that was her thing. And so she, it was like watching throughout that spring, watching her get close and then not quite making. And then finally, when she made it, it was like, yay, Emily, you did it.
Oh
But
my
she had to
god.
race so much to get into that spring in order to get in. It was sort of like a Annette Bednowski spring for Emily, 6 or 7 years ago, whenever it was, because Emily now is, top 10 every year and everything, and is a fixture at Western States. But it took her a spring of heartbreak to finally get into the race and get her golden ticket.
Wow. Yeah, that is, I mean, obviously the commitment is commendable to trying to get that ticket, but imagining, I mean, we all know the preparation that goes into running one ultra marathon, the training, the travel, the recovery afterwards, and then to turn around to do it again and again. It kind of blows my mind a little bit. Um, in Tarawera, I was at the award ceremony, and they're, calling age group awards up for the 100K, and they're like, first place in the whatever it was, 60 to 64, I'm not sure their age groups, over 60, and they call Stephanie Irvine, and I was like, "Stephanie Irvine?" I was like, and I look, and I'm like, sure enough, that's our Western States Silver Legend recipient this year. And so I go, "Stephanie, it's Carrie from Western States." And she runs over and hugs me, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, and she said, "Yeah, it's a training run for Western States." So she flew
Mhm.
to New Zealand to run Tarawera as this training run, and I think she said she's doing canyons also, and it just like
Wow.
it does
Yeah.
kinda blow my mind, yeah, and, she had been trying to get into Western States, I think, for 10 years and was awarded the Silver Legend, spot this year, and just such a great runner into her 60s, and, anyhow, you just reminded me of that, when you were talking about there are all these spring races that are going on. They're great opportunities for training for Western States and learn and just racing in general, but, it is a lot. It's a lot to ask of ourselves and our, family and just with travel and, what racing does to us physically. But so it always impresses me when people can turn around and do another super
Yeah.
strong race not too long after.
Carrie, can I ask
Um,
you a quick question here? I don't want to put you on the spot, but you set a really high standard for the presentation of the golden ticket when you dressed up as Willy Wonka at
yes.
at Javelina. So I probably know the answer to this, but maybe you'll surprise me. So did you dress up like a hobbit in New Zealand to like hand out a
Wow.
golden ticket at Tarawera?
Didn't.
What kind of costume, or did you wear a costume for this time?
Oh man, no, I didn't. Hobbit, that's interesting. That didn't even, and several people said, "Hey, did you pack your Willy Wonka costume
Yeah.
for Tarawera?" And I was like, "No." Like, first of all, I don't know how Willy Wonka lands in Tarawera, New Zealand. If people
Yeah.
would just be like, "What is that? What is she dressed at? What is she?" Maybe they would have just assumed I was a hobbit. And so I didn't pack it, and it did cross my mind though. Javelina, with it being like this Halloween party and costume, it just fits so well. And then of course, golden tickets, Willy Wonka, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But I didn't know if it would. If it would land or translate as well in New Zealand, dressed as Willy Wonka. But I didn't even think about dressing like a hobbit. That could have been fun. I did not do that. I was just in plain old clothes, so nothing too
Yeah.
fun.
Well, next year. Next
Next
year.
time, yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes. Um, Okay. Well, anything else on golden tickets, John? If not, we'll have some other stuff to chat about, but anything else to note there?
Yeah, and you mentioned too. I mean, the other part that I find fascinating about golden tickets, you mentioned Jacob Banta and you mentioned Katie Asmuth, and you watch these golden ticket races and you start rooting, some people, you don't know everybody, but you know some of these people. I know Jacob, like you said, he's been a fixture on the media side for a couple of years at Western States. And so you get really excited when you see that. And then on the flip
Mhm.
side, and you know this, Katie Asmuth is just such a wonderful person and she loves Western states, and to see her get close but not quite get there too. So there's this range of emotions from afar as you watch these races where, you see certain people get it, certain people don't, and you're like happy, you're sad, and you wonder how they're doing. They're going to be able to handle the disappointment. Knowing somebody like Katie, I'm sure she's an incredibly resilient woman, and I'm sure she's
Mhm.
already planning on whatever the next big thing that she's able to do. But just from a spectator standpoint, you feel all the feels as, for these people, especially when you know them.
Absolutely, John. And, I try, just in my position to be unbiased, but it is very hard to be unbiased because we do have relationships with some of these runners. And, like you said, with Katie being such a fixture and a fan of Western States, and Western States being such a fan of Katie, of course, I was rooting for her. Like, I would love to see her come back to Western States, and I know that one day she will. And so Saturday was her birthday, so February
Mhm.
14th was Katie's birthday. She was running to Wear, so it was extra special. And so, I handed out the last golden ticket, and waited for Katie. And, she came through. She almost immediately, kind of falls to the ground. You could tell she really put it all out there and kind of was like, what happened? Who is this like Holly Branson woman who just smoked me? Like all the and Ryan Thrower tells the MC it's her birthday, so everybody sings her happy birthday at the
No.
finish. And then I get to go over and talk to her for a few minutes. And she, like you were talking about her resiliency, and like Katie is such a the like epitome of trail and ultra running, her spirit, that is, and how she was very proud of herself, which I, love to hear that even if we all knew she was trying to get a golden ticket. That was her goal of going out there. So we knew that. And she didn't get it, but yet she knew, she said, I did my best today. I tried really, really hard. I had a lot of fun. I am proud of how I raced. And I'll be back at Western States. I didn't get it this year, but I will eventually be back. And for now, I'm happy with how I did, and I'm happy for the women that did get the golden ticket. So just so much to be said of
Yeah.
Katie's character, and I just love Katie and her energy and her how supportive she is of other runners and other women and professional runners and so forth. So she was in very good spirits, to all
Yeah.
that said. And she's running UTMB. So she has a big
Okay.
goal this year. And now she's like, now I can focus on that. And I
Yeah.
know for now the golden ticket chase is over for this year, and I'm focusing on UTMB, and then I'll get back to it. So I am very confident we're going to see Katie again at the start line of Western States.
That's great. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really fun moment. All right. So, we got some other news to chat through with that's going on within the organization beyond golden tickets. We opened volunteer registration online a couple weeks ago. So anybody that's not already associated with an aid station or start or finish or what have you, if you want to go onto our website and fill out the form there, our volunteer coordinator will be reaching out to folks in the next coming months to fill any gaps that we may have. So that's open online. Our medical conference registration is
Mhm.
open, and we just updated the itinerary, the schedule for the conference. The conference is held on the Friday of Memorial Weekend, so that's gonna be May 22nd, and that basically kicks off our training run weekend. So a lot of people that participate in training runs will come in the day early, go to the conference, You don't have to be a medical professional. Certainly, there are a lot of medical professionals there that may get their like continuing education, but that's not a requirement to attend the conference. Anybody who's just interested in the topics can attend. But it's held in Auburn at the Holiday Inn. Registration is on our website on the homepage. You can see a link there and it'll take you to the Ultra sign up registration page. But John, real quick, I will go through the schedule just so folks
Yeah.
know what topics are going to be covered this year. Um, okay, so we have 100 miles, 20 years, what ultra marathon running teaches us about the human heart. That's David Oxborough. I won't go in through all the speakers so that just for the sake of time, this is all on the website. You can see the agenda, what time everybody's speaking and what the speakers are. All right. Preparing to run hot at Western States Endurance Run. Talking about heat, core temperature responses, nutritional strategies to reduce GI stress. I mean, this is a huge one. Like I would think that and I believe they are going to be videoing the conference,
Mm.
and there will be an option to, pay for the video afterwards or what have you. I believe Dr. Andy is trying to figure that out. So anyhow, that sounds obviously very relevant to Western states. And then energy demands and psychologic changes at Western States Endurance Run, research trends for female ultra runners. The ultra runner with difficulty breathing, is it asthma or something else? Then we have workshops in the afternoon, orthopedic concerns in ultra runners, hyponatremia, rhabdo, AKI, and beyond. To run or not to run. Not sure exactly what that's going to be about, but it sounds interesting. I think the answer is to run, but anyhow, to run or not to run. And then looks like our last topic will be cardiac issues in runners. So a lot of great topics going to be covered at the conference this year. So go on the website, Western States Endurance, WSER.org. It's on the homepage. It'll take you to the Ultra Sign Up registration page, and come join us for that on the Friday before training runs. Speaking of training runs, we are full. Training runs sold out right after Christmas, like December 26th. So it's been selling out. It's quicker and quicker every year. What we used to say is like, it's the best kept secret in trail running. I don't think it's very secret anymore. This training camp weekend. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, a Memorial weekend, we end up running 70 miles total of the course, the last 70 miles. It is sold out. We will have a wait list each morning of the training runs. So for folks that did not get a chance to sign up and they show up, they put their name on a list. And then as we see how many no-shows and basically space on our buses, then we let people in based on those no-shows. And if you're trying to get in, I would keep checking back on the Ultra Sign Up registration page, because people will withdraw and spots will open up. You just got to kind of catch it at the right time. We do not have an online wait list. I get that email almost every other day of somebody asking, is there an online wait list? And we do not have an online wait list. So keep checking back. And then there is the on-site waitlist option, which of course isn't guaranteed, but we usually do everything we can to get everybody in that shows up. So I'm going to say that, and 500 people are going to show up, and it's not going to happen. But but anyhow, so that's our training run update. Memorial weekend. Last podcast, we talked about Stride. I did tell Jackie I would mention that again, one of our sponsors, they still have a couple of those sponsorship spots available for Western States. So if you haven't heard about Stride, there's a link on our website to their website, but it's support for trail running, inclusion, development, and empowerment. It's basically grants that they're awarding to select athletes that may need some financial assistance and helping at least eliminate one of the barriers to entry. And they're doing it for more than just Western States, other trail running events as well. So this is their first year doing this. They've been sponsors and supporters of Western States in the past, but under a different organization. So Stride is new, nonprofit. Anyhow, check them out if you think you might qualify or be interested. in applying for one of their grants. And then I think lastly that I had on my list, John, was I talked to Craig Thornley this morning and we talked about snow levels because it's just, one of those
Yeah.
topics that gets talked about and considered often in the winter going into spring and how the course might look. And it's been a pretty, I guess, light year, slow year for snow in the mountains. Um, December, January, but has picked up here recently. And you said this morning it's snowing now. You probably
Yeah.
know more about what's going on with the snow than I do in Florida. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I live in Reno, of course. So, the mountains where the race is held are right behind me here. We're down in the valley, but yeah, it's wet and rainy here. And for the next several days, the storm door is open, after, high pressure has been, made for a fantastically dry, winter of running, in and around our area. But, that's changing. And there's this whole school of thought about the snow and what that means. My guess would be, unless we get like a real miracle March, which has been known to happen, where it really dumps. It doesn't feel like we're going to get up to 100% of normal this year, but I mean, these storms will certainly help. And then it becomes a question of, would you rather run on the snow, in a heavy snow year, or would you rather, run where everything it's going to melt out and it's going to be kind of like not necessarily a quagmire up there, but it's a lot more muddy and disruptive, because of the fact that you're not just there's all this snow that you're running on, and suddenly there's mud and there's some creeks you have to cross. I remember, what year was it? I think when Jim Walmsley was still trying to master Western States. And I think it was might have been 2017, or thereabouts, where Jim was determined to run course record pace, even though the high country was an absolute mess, where the snow was gone, but for the most part, but it was muddy. It was just mud and wet. And he just kind of ran himself out, unfortunately, up in the high country. And then I think that was one of the years where, unfortunately, Jim, dropped at the river or whatever, and it was because it was so disruptive and so difficult,
mm,
because it just wasn't just you almost, I mean, it sounds counterintuitive, but you'd rather almost run on straight snow as opposed to, going down and having to pop up out of these streams and these muddy areas and all of that. So there'll be discussion about that. Like, what would you rather have, a big snow year, or a bunch of mud up there, perhaps? Or, the other thing is, if it doesn't snow a whole heck of a lot, um, it could be dry. Because that's where we were at a few days ago. I mean, it's a minuscule amount of snowpack that we have up there, and if this doesn't do what it's supposed to do, this storm and others, it could be dry as well. And then if it becomes dry, then all the prognosticators will be like, okay, this is the year where sub 14-hour Western States will finally be run, type of thing. So it's fun. It gives us stuff to talk about between
yeah,
now and June, of course.
absolutely. And on that note, John, we think of like, oh, heavy snow year, odd, does that mean it's going to be harder or slower? However, we have a whole new element to consider. This year will be our first year allowing micro spikes and
Yeah.
poles.
Mhm.
So perhaps if it is a heavier snow year and you don't have, the mud and the water to contend with,
Mhm.
as you were mentioning, then and you can use spikes and poles. So maybe it would be more beneficial to have that snowpack. It's interesting to think about, strategy wise, which scenario is faster, and better for the runners. Um, It'd be interesting to see. I mean, it's obviously not up to us. It's Mother Nature, but it's fun to follow along, like you said, and give us something else to talk about between now and June. Um, and since you brought up, is this the year people going for 14 hours? Like, this could be our last year
Mhm.
on the current course through Granite Chief Wilderness, if all goes as well, as planned, this summer with Granite Chief trail work and the reroute. So of course, there's been speculation that like the course is going to get faster after this year, And that, some people want to intentionally come out and run this year on the last time on this course. It like we said, if all goes as planned, who knows? Things happen. Maybe the reroute doesn't get finished this year, but that is the plan and the hope that it does. And then how is that also going to change times and future years when we have this reroute finished? So just a
Yeah.
side note, since you brought up that sub
Yeah.
14.
Yeah, the so-called, Carrie, the so-called bogs,
Yes.
there's that part of the course, anybody who's run the course, they'll understand exactly what I'm talking about, where you run into Granite Chief Wilderness and it's easy at first, and then suddenly, there's these stream crossings where and literally at one
Hmm.
point, the trail becomes a stream as you're making a climb up, and those will
Yeah.
go away with the reroute, and so the bogs will go away. The trade is just fantastic views up there for the reroute. And, again, speaking about, that whether or not this is going to be a snow year or not, for our trail crews, the sooner all that snow goes away up there, the sooner they can get in there. And
Certainly.
even though a lot of this is already scheduled, but it makes it a lot easier, obviously, if it's a drier year as opposed to having to wait for snow to go away in certain parts as well. So yeah, and the reroute, ultimately, I think, people will play that game of like, it's faster, it's slower, whatever. But then again, then it's like, oh, yeah, but it was faster until it turned 110 degrees one day. And then it's not so
Exactly.
fast. So all this stuff comes together and it's kind of like this goulash of stuff. And you don't quite know exactly what it all means. But again, it gives you a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, if anybody listening is interested in helping with trail work, whether it be Granite Chief over the summer or prior to the race, um, on our website under trail work opportunities, there's multiple volunteer opportunities that you can sign up and come out and work on the trail. We have several leading up to the race, including our weekend prior to the race for last minute touch ups, and then over the summer, Granite Chief Wilderness reroute work days. So can sign up to come out and help out. Those are like camping weekends for the Granite Chief, which is fun. So everybody camps out the whole weekend and works their butts off. So anyhow, so that's on the website if anybody's interested in helping with trail work. Um, well, John, that was on my list of things to chat about thus far. I had waitlist on our list to talk about, and last time we met for our podcast last month, there had been quite a lot of movement for so early on, and it has pretty much stalled. We haven't had much movement or any movement on
Uh,
the wait list since then. So it was like that initial kind of influx of people that got in and then realized they couldn't run for one reason or another and had to withdraw. And, we pulled in from the wait list, but now it's kind of stalled and everybody that's in has stayed in. And our wait listers are just probably refreshing their browser every day to see if it's changed at all. But yeah, we haven't really had any movement on the wait list lately. So that's been just stagnant there. Um, Anything? Oh, I did want to briefly talk about, and you and I will talk about this in the next podcast a lot more in depth, but I've already started getting inquiries for media credentials. And
mhm.
so you
Yeah.
and I will have a meeting very soon about that and what changes are coming along with that. But we typically open those applications online in March. Does
Mhm.
that sound right, John?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And yeah, and it's obviously a really important part of the race, and we try to get that fine line between making sure that people have access to the content that they need to get, with also without um, going over that line and getting a little too intrusive about what they do as well. So yeah, that's coming up,
Exactly.
and we get hundreds of applications.
Hundreds. Yep, exactly. Yep, and there's the big thing is, capacity, aid stations, and that's kinda what it comes down to is crowd control, parking, capacity, and all those things we have to consider when, giving out media credentials. So that will open up next month on our website that you'll apply for credentials. John Trent is our, press/media manager, and him and I work together on going through those credentials and the policies and so forth. So look for that coming up. And we'll also start diving into more over the next couple months of crewing Western states, pacing
Mhm.
Western states, spectating, all the non-runner things that that are actually, more people do than actually run the race. So we'll be diving into all that because again, our aid stations, several of them are in very remote areas or in very limited parking areas, and so a lot to consider if you're coming out to Western states in any capacity, such as media, crewing, spectating, pacing, so forth, that you'll need to know. And we're going to get into all of that in the next few months leading up to the race.
Yeah, so,
Any,
Carrie, one last question for you. I
yeah,
mean, if you think, I want you to go back in time for a second to think about what you were thinking about a year ago when you were in the
hmm
race at this point. Did you feel like you had your arms around it in February, or did it seem like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into?
yeah, it was definitely a, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? I was very nervous from the time I, registered for the race up until I finished the race. And not only, the logistics side, which of course I have a very good understanding of the logistics side, but then when you're the runner and you have your crew, your A and B crew and your pacers. And so to look at it from first the assistant RD position and facilitating that information out, but then also planning it for myself because I was running the race was a unique position. And yeah, I did not have my arms wrapped around it by February. I sure didn't.
See, and that's the value. I think if
Yeah,
people are listening to this now and they're in the race, remember it's only February. There's plenty of
yes,
time, to get your arms around things. And,
absolutely.
even though most of us are highly organized and we love our lists or whatever, you can work on those lists there's plenty of time between now and June to figure
Absolutely.
all that stuff out.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point, John. Plenty of time to do that, focus on staying healthy
Yeah.
in your training and, not getting injured, things of that sort. Cause I think it's real tempting, especially like right after the lottery in like January, and that you have to be, logging high mileage. I know, I had a coach for my Western States run, and it was somebody that was referred to me. I've actually never even like met him in person, but he's a very well-known coach and he has coached people at Western State. I wanted somebody that knew the course really well and the specific demands of the course and the environment, but that also had trained flatlanders
Mhm.
before because I was going to be
Yeah.
doing almost all of my training in Florida. And so this person was referred to me because he had that kind of experience. And I remember like in January, February, March, like running what would be considered by most ultra runners like kind of low mileage.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm really trying to trust the process. I'm really trying to trust my coach, but I feel like I should be running more. You get real anxious. I'm sure you know
Mhm.
that feeling, John Trent,
Mhm.
like that,
Mhm.
why I should be running more and more and more. And he was right. And, I went into training camp like the fittest I had ever been. I did not have the race I wanted per se, but that there were lots of other factors. But just
Mhm.
like training camp, I ran all 3 days and I was like, texted and called my coach and I was like, oh my gosh, like I am so fit, even on climbing. And so all of that to say, if you're listening to this and you're training for Western States, especially if it's your first time and you don't have I didn't have a lot of ultra running experience in the, 100K and higher mileage. I'd only run 100
Yeah.
miler prior to Western States. So you feel like you should be running a lot more. And then you end up with an injury or you have to
Yeah.
withdraw or
Yeah.
you come to the race injured or you have to stop running or what have you. So I would, if I were to give any advice as far as training is, if you have a coach or you have a training plan, just trust that.
Mhm.
And it's only February. There's no reason you should be running super high mileage or that you should be at some point by now. That enjoy the process because the process is 6 months, whereas the race is 30 hours or less. And so just take it all in and enjoy that you're here and you're in and do everything you can to stay healthy to get to the start line.
Here, here. That's beautiful. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better than that, Carrie. That's a great message.
Thanks, John. Well, thank you for working around my crazy New Zealand schedule this week to record this podcast, John. And we will resume again in a few weeks on our next topics. But for now, I wish I could remember the New Zealand sign off because they have such a beautiful native language that I can't really pronounce any of it. But anyhow, thank you, John, for calling in and doing this podcast with me today. And it's been really fun, and hopefully others are taking a lot from it from a historical standpoint, but also for where we are now and preparing for the race.
Take good care, Carrie. See you soon.
Okay, you too, John. Bye bye.